Okay, so what I want to do is give a little bit more about our Infinite Wealth workshop. I think this is really important because a lot of people, have gone through big setbacks over the last year or so. And this is a chance to get back on your feet. In fact, go a lot further than perhaps you were even before. So there are 7 steps to infinite wealth, and I want to go through all 7 with you, give you a little idea about what you're in for. So the first step is absolutely to do massive self-work so that you become wealthy inside. We're going to cover that in this program. Where be things like, how do you get yourself into a state where you do the things that you need to do to become infinitely wealthy? Or how do you get yourself into a state, and I call this a state of valuing yourself so that wealth is just attracted to you. And we'll do a little exercise like that towards the end of this mini webinar. So what infinite wealth is, in my opinion, is a journey through consciousness. But the good news is you don't have to travel very far on that journey. You just have to get out of the victim mode. So if you remember the 4 levels of consciousness, the first level is it happens to you. This is the victim mode. The second level is the personal power mode, which means it happens by me or by you. And the third is what I call the awakened version, which means it happens through you. And the final stage really doesn't come into play for most people, so we don't need to talk about it right now. But so, for example, if you're at the victim level of consciousness, you're going to be thinking about this workshop happens to you. And maybe your belief is if it can change enough people so that if the success rate is high enough, maybe it'll change you. So if that rate's high enough, perhaps it'll change me and maybe it's worth buying. Well, it probably won't change you because you're still in the victim mode. And you absolutely have to get out of the victim mode in order for it to be able to work. You've got to get into the personal power mode, where the personal power mode at the lowest level, at least, here are a bunch of techniques to get you to infinite wealth. Here are some ideas about how you might be blocking yourself. And here are the techniques to get over that, to get to infinite wealth. And if your level of awareness here and it happens by me is high enough, then you'll come to a place where you believe your success is inevitable, and then nothing can stop you at that point. So it's kind of that kind of journey. And if you're a little bit higher, you might be it happens through me. And here you just be saying, well, my inner guidance has presented me with, say, this workshop. It must want it for me. And you'd ask and say, is this what you want me to do? Take this workshop. Now, my position on this is that I'm not responsible for you becoming infinitely wealthy. What I'm responsible to you for is delivering everything I can that will help you with your success. But I'm not responsible for you overcoming your self-sabotage or actually doing the work. And if you have a low enough consciousness, you probably won't do the work. But even then, this workshop is designed to help you raise up your consciousness and get past the limitations that most people have. So the second step to infinite wealth. So the first step is massive internal work and raise your consciousness. The second is do a thorough self-assessment of your assets, liabilities, income, and expenses, and determine how many months wealthy you are, what's your passive income per month, and from that what's your monthly expenses. And when you subtract your passive income from your monthly expenses, that's your infinite wealth number. So the net result of step 2 is you're going to say, I'm so many dollars away from being infinitely wealthy, or I'm so many dollars above being infinitely wealthy. And there's a real power to knowing your financial freedom number. When I first did this workshop with Robert Kiyosaki, I wasn't infinitely wealthy, but I focused on that number. It took me about 6 months to become infinitely wealthy. And I think some of you may be able to do it a lot faster than that, because in many cases, it's like a paradigm shift where you can invent, because money's not real for you, you realize that it's just made up, you can go much faster. Okay, so the third step to infinite wealth is to reduce your biggest expenses. And the 2 biggest expenses are debt and taxes. So we have a whole section on debt reduction in the workshop. If you've got big debt like mortgages and things like that, so there's a section on how to just add an extra 10% to what you're paying for debt reduction and to really get out of that rat race. And so, maybe you're spending now $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month on debt reduction. And, what if that was zero? Well, your number would go up by $3,000. And the second biggest expense you have, or maybe the biggest for some of you, is taxes. So we're going to teach you how the rich spend first and get taxed on what's left over. And that's another section. We'll be talking about entities and what you can do with entities and maybe the expectancy of taxes. So that's the third step, get rid of your biggest expenses. And some people could do it. We used to have people, they'd say, somebody would tell me, I'm a trader, and they lived in Connecticut, where it's expensive. They commuted to Manhattan, which was a long commute every day, maybe an hour and 2 hours, and then returned back at night. So they were working a 10-hour day to maybe make $300,000 a year. But if they had the same job or the same lifestyle here in North Carolina and worked at home, they'd be infinitely wealthy now. So, that kind of thing can also happen. So the next step is to increase your assets. And this might amount to budgeting to increase your assets. And let me remind you what an asset is. If you stop working, an asset is a group of a source of passive income that feeds you. So most people think their house is an asset, but the way they have their house structured, basically, if you stop working, it really eats you. And that's not the case with my house. I can show you how to do it such that it isn't the case. But for most people, you need to develop assets that feed you on a regular basis. And if nothing else, it could be setting aside amount of money every month that would just could be used as to build different asset bases. Or in some cases, it goes on to the fifth step. And the fifth step is basically looking at the assets you do have and seeing if there's a way you can earn money from it. For example, how much cash do you have in the bank? If you have cash in the bank these days, you're probably being paid 0.001% interest or less. I think one of my personal account that has over $100,000 in it right now, and hopefully not for very much longer, just got an interest check for 64 cents. I guarantee you I can take a $100,000 and earn a lot more than 64 cents on it. So that's another way you can do this. Take the money that you have, and and as an example, suppose you do have a house that's it's not really an asset; it's a liability because you still money out on it. But right now, let's say it has a lot of equity, and you could get maybe an equity loan on it for 2 or 3%. And what if you could turn that into an asset that made you 10% a year? That would be a huge change, and even a few switches like that might be enough to get you to infinite wealth. And one of the last steps is to consider a paradigm shift. Many people can become infinitely wealthy instantly just by considering a paradigm shift. So the meaning of infinite wealth and the importance of cash flow, realizing that could be a paradigm shift. The importance of systems, owning the system rather than being the system, is another paradigm shift. Looking at your assets, like I just mentioned, and how to increase passive income could be another paradigm shift. Or learning how to minimize the amount of taxes that you need to pay is another paradigm shift. Thinking of taxes as an expectancy formula. And the last idea, which is really critical, and I think this is the 7th step, and it kind of repeats the first step because it's again about doing massive internal work so you can accept infinite wealth. So I add that step. It's the same step at the beginning, at the end, because it is so important. So what I want you to do is I want you to now just relax in your chair and think back a bit. Maybe close your eyes and think about how much money you make every month. So most of you have some idea how much money you make every month. Maybe you make $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month. So you have a rough idea what it is. And then you probably have a rough idea of what other sources of income you have that might be passive, such as rents, royalties, dividends, that sort of thing. Subtract that from it. And now you have an idea, a rough idea, of what your infinite wealth number is. So I want you to imagine what it would feel like to start thinking about that number every day and watching it shrink. For example, you might change your lifestyle. Perhaps make 3 or 4 things. Perhaps you buy a latte every day and it costs you $3.50 or $3 to make it easy. Well, that's $21 a week. That's over $100 a month. If you could make 3 changes like that, you'd probably be maybe saving $350 a month or trimming that off your infinite wealth number. Maybe you could redeploy your assets and suddenly have another $1,500 a month taken off your infinite wealth number. So what would it feel like to do that? You're thinking about it. Your number's 5,000, it goes down to 3,000, goes down to 1,500. Because you're thinking about it, you get paradigm shifts. Your unconscious mind comes together, and perhaps it creates a way for you to create maybe 3,000 a month from nothing. And maybe it has to do with something you love to do. We're going to show you how to do that, how to perhaps turn your hobby into a source of passive income on the internet. And suddenly, without 3,000 a month, you're infinitely wealthy. So imagine that. Your number is just now gone down to 0. How does that make you feel? Notice the feeling inside you and rate it on a 1 to 10 scale. If it's a 5, make it a 10. It's that feeling of now being infinitely wealthy. Make it a 10. And now make it a 20. And this is kind of the feeling of feeling value inside. So maybe you might want to think about how you can enrich other people's lives as well through this, through your infinite wealth. Notice what that feels like. Maybe double that feeling again, make it even stronger. And now imagine taking it to the future. Take it to tomorrow. What can you do tomorrow to take that journey right now toward infinite wealth? What can you do now to take that journey right now toward infinite wealth? Perhaps it's a simple step of signing up for the workshop, realizing that an expense of under $2,000 a month could help you create a passive income asset that makes you $2,000 a month and would pay for the workshop every month for month after month after month after month after month after month. So I'll leave you with that. That's my gift to you. I want you to take that infinite wealth feeling. I want you to get that idea of what your infinite wealth number is and how to reduce it. Thinking about how to reduce it every day. And that's my gift for you on this workshop. And I hope you do decide to join me in the workshop. Thank you.